Hello everyone and welcome! Before we get back into covering all the latest stories, I wanted to talk about a video Riot released few days ago. In that video, Brandon Beck, aka Rise, aka the co-founder of Riot Games, talked about world building. First of all, I can't be thankful enough to finally see Brandon Beck and Mark Merrill step out and show themselves as members of their teams. A lot of people still have no idea who these guys are, and yet without them, League might have never existed. So good on you, Mark and Brandon, for showing us that you don't only do paperwork and that League is still in your hands. Now, what did Brandon talk about in that video? He started with their decisions regarding choosing the world for their champions during the early days of the game. They decided to create world as diverse as possible so they could support even the craziest ideas for champions they might have. Back then, their primary focus was on the game and its gameplay. The story was only secondary priority. That's when Riot realized that every good game has a good story. And that's when Riot noticed their flaws. By creating a diverse world, they might bring in any champion they want. But at the same time, they also need diverse storytelling, which with 70 extremely unique characters was difficult to pull off. If you really think about it, most fantasy worlds have their own rules. They are usually placed in the Middle Ages with some sparkling magic on top of it. Then they have rules regarding their races. Usually they have a good race, most likely human race, and then you have some kind of villain race, like goblins, orcs, undead or anything in that regard. For League of Legends, pulling narrative with rules became hard. Because they had so many different things happening at the same time, they felt like they needed a lot of rules. League is not placed in the Middle Ages, maybe Noxus and Demacia are, but you also have chemical guns and bombs from Piltover and Zone, Bilgewater with its pirates, Shadow Isles with the undead, you have aliens from the Void, monkey people, lion people, sea creatures, and the list goes on. With such a diverse cast, Riot decided to put everyone in line and give everyone a reason why they were part of the game. That's how the summoners were created. However, the problem with the summoners was that they, to quote Brandon, over-explained the world. Which is absolutely true. They actually managed to explain everything happening in the game, which they didn't have to. Picking a champion for a fight? You are actually a summoner picking a hero to represent a side in a conflict. What even is League of Legends? It's a place that lets different factions to settle differences in simulated battles without death. Did your character just flash without magic or set someone on fire with Ignite? Well, these are the summoner spells, which the summoner can cast to help his controlled champion. Riot made sure everything made sense, which ultimately led to the downfall of the first iteration of their story. Brandon said that they realized that it is okay for some things to not make sense. He compared this to the midichlorians from Star Wars. It is okay that people know that the Force is a thing without knowing how it works. This is true, you don't need to explain how everything works. In Riot's case right now, you don't need to know how arcane lightnings are summoned. But it is important to know the source. Are all humans on Runeterra capable of casting spells? Is that something you inherit? If so, how come the parents can cast magic? I would love to see some kind of connection to the world runes there. Maybe these stones are radiating magic and newborns are affected by them. Maybe these stones came from space and hit Runeterra. We know there is a diverse galaxy, so arcane magic may not come from this world. It is important to let some things be a mystery, but to a degree which makes sense. In this case, getting rid of the summoners was a good call. Brandon then continued talking about what they achieved in storytelling in the last years. And let me tell you, the progress is incredible. They managed to create separate regions with unique looks and cultures, but not so diverse they don't interact with each other. All the changes in stories they have done in the past ultimately led to the age we are in right now. Riot is now capable of releasing stories on regular basis. All because they spent months and months of preparing their world. And now they have a really good world with regions with their own motivations. They can now start placing all the champions back into their places. These champions may not necessarily be the same as before, but this time they have a place in the world tailored for them. A really good example of the world being tailored around multiple champions at once are the Vastaya. Riot no longer needs to find reasons to create new bestial races. If it looks like an animal and it is humanoid, it is Vastayan. Wukong, Ahri, Fizz, Nami, Rengar. All of these suddenly make sense because Riot used their world and figured out a way of explaining everything with the least amount of details. In the last part of the video, Brandon talked about something everyone was interested in: the future of Riot stories. He mentioned that as they keep working on their world, it becomes more possible to go bigger beyond their game. It seems like they want to focus more on comic books, short stories, CG trailers, novellas, and yes, he even mentioned possible full-length novels. That's a big one, because once they venture into books, their world can expand tenfold. And they already have few stories that could be explored with books. I would love to see the early days of Aurelion and Targon, the beginnings of Rune Wars, or even the age of Mordekaiser. And finally, Brandon talked about the real deal, the League of Legends movie. And unsurprisingly, he mentioned that they are not ready for it yet. Creating a movie requires high dedication. It is something you need to want to do, otherwise you will 100% fail. No one should ever make a movie just because the fans want it, especially in the video game industry, which is famous for bad movies. Only recently it seems like video game movies are getting somewhere. As far as I know, the Assassin's Creed movie got around 6 out of 10, which is not bad, it is slightly above average, and the Warcraft movie, despite the critics not getting it at all, the fans gave it around 7 out of 10, which is great. The question we should be asking right now is, if League of Legends movie is going to happen, what will it be about, and when will it happen? Because it is such a long process, I can't see it happening in the next 5 years at least. But that's it for this shorter video. I really just wanted to let everyone know that Riot is talking about their own stories and they are constantly updating us. And it is good to know that there is a lot ahead of us. But now I will get back into storytelling. So if you like this video, you know all the stuff you need to do. I don't think I need to remind you everything. So I think as always, thank you, come again.